the murder would have been more understandable. However, since the murder is committed without any sign of anger, murder is repeated. The twins appear almost robotic, and the reader questions the culture which makes the twins feel as though they must carry through with such a horrible act as murder. It's like awkward wording. This creates a critique of Colombian society and the morality of the behavior it promotes, since the characters who represent it commit a murder without any personal reason other than that their culture expects it of them. In addition to the Vicario brothers' initial reaction to their confession, the murder scene itself is void of emotion. Marquez writes, quote, "Then they both kept on kniving him against the door with alternate and easy stabs, floating in the dazzling backwater that they had found on the other side of fear. They didn't hear the shouts of the whole town, frightened by its own crime." Close quote. The mechanical imagery of the brothers' alternating repeated stab scene is particularly striking, since typical murder scenes are written as full of passion, yet the twins do not even show awareness of the severity of their crime, and seem almost like figures in a crude whirligig toy. The way in which Marquez writes the murder scene is also bizarre, since he focuses on the physical challenge of killing someone rather than the emotional challenge. He writes, quote, "They were exhausted, and yet they thought that Santiago Nassar would never fall. Shit, cousin, Pablo Vicario told me. You can't imagine how hard it is to kill a man." Close quote. By focusing on how physically demanding it is to kill someone, Marquez further characterizes the Vicario brothers as emotionless. That's a little skipping a step of logic. In addition, by depicting a typically emotionally charged action as completely void of emotion, Marquez makes the reader recognize the extreme wrongness of the murder. The way in which Marquez describes the act of murder as a physically demanding task that is difficult but must be accomplished showcases his criticism of Colombian society and the normalcy of honor killings. This is shown when he highlights the fact that the brothers are not angry at their victim at all, and they only think about the physical challenge of killing him, in the same way that a robot does not feel emotions but can still become physically drained from a task. Another example of Marquez's criticism of Colombian society can be found in the parallels between the murder of Santiago Nassar and a routine animal butchering. He uses language such as, quote, "pig-killing knives, slaughters, iron wrist, and the moan of a calf," close quote, to depict the murder scene in this way. By treating a murder as only another butchering, Marquez exposes the normalcy of honor killings in Colombian society. This is further accomplished by the dehumanization of Santiago Nassar during his murder. Since most people hold the belief that the dead should be treated with respect, Marquez's depiction of Santiago as an animal during and after his death is extremely jarring. I do apostrophe S and then apostrophe. Marquez's image of Santiago Nassar's intestines spilling out at the end of the story, quote, "Desperate, Pablo Vicario gave him a horizontal slash on the stomach and all his intestines exploded out," close quote, mirrors the way that the rabbit's intestines spilled out at the beginning of the story. Quote, "She pulled out the insides of a rabbit by the roots and threw the steaming guts to the dogs," close quote, which not only contributes to the depiction of Santiago as an animal, but gives the novel a cyclic structure, implying that this pattern of honor killings is a cycle as opposed to an isolated incident. This furthers Marquez's critique of Colombian society, since he implies that murders are commonplace and just a part of the culture. Throughout Chronicle of a Death Foretold, Gabriel Garcia Marquez uses descriptive language and imagery to characterize the Vicario brothers as an everyman figure for Colombian society. These quotes are on everyman sometimes, but not always. Thus creating a critique of this culture of honor killings as a whole. Although Marquez criticizes the Colombian culture of the 1950s when the novel takes place, his decision to revisit the story 30 years later can be interpreted as a criticism of Colombian culture of the 1980s as well. Marquez writes the horrific story of the murder of Santiago Nassar to reveal Colombian society's lack of change in the 30 years between the real-life event and the novel publication. This speaks to the larger problem with Colombian culture's strong traditions and social customs, since the issues faced by Colombians in 1951 were still problems in 1981. And then